Hello YouTubers, my name is Frederick Lopez and you are in a new movie review. In anticipation for the new Rogue One, a Star Wars story, I decided to revisit the prequel trilogy. And earlier I reviewed The Phantom Menace, and now on this episode of Movie Review, I will review Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. So yeah, Attack of the Clones came out a few years after Phantom Menace. It was released in 2002, and yeah, the hype died down from Phantom Menace. Mixed reviews, like I said in my previous review, for the first prequel film. But this one has a new Anakin Skywalker who's older, and it takes us one step closer in his journey to him becoming Darth Vader. Anyway, I'm going to go over the cast and plot summary, and then I'll give my review and thoughts of this installment. It's directed by George Lucas and written by George Lucas and Jonathan Helms, who wrote The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. The film stars Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker, Natalie Portman as Padme, Ewan McGregor returns as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Christopher Lee joins the cast as the infamous Count Dooku. Samuel L. Jackson returns as Mace Windu. Frank Oz as Yoda. Ian McDiarmid as Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. Jimmy Smits as Senator Bail Organa. Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, and Kenny Baker as R2-D2. So what is Attack of the Clones about? Well, Attack of the Clones is set 10 years after the events in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. After an assassination attempt on the life of Senator Padme Amidala, Jedi Knight Obi-Wan Kenobi and his Padawan learner, Anakin Skywalker, are sent to investigate. After tracking down the assassin, she is killed before any information can be driven out of her. The two Jedi are now sent on two separate missions. Anakin is sent to Naboo to protect Padme, and Obi-Wan is sent to the planet of Kamino, where he will investigate the assassination attempts on Senator Amidala's life. Little does he know that he's investigating some of the biggest events of the Star Wars saga, as he finds out that there is a connection between the assassination attempts and a separatist movement led by a former Jedi against the Republic. The Galactic Republic now finds itself at the brink of a civil war. So yeah, that's pretty much the plot synopsis. Not the best one, but they find themselves in a civil war and they're on two separate missions. And I get to more of that later, but George Lucas originally was hesitant writing the script after the mixed reception of The Phantom Menace, and he actually didn't get it complete until a couple of weeks before principal photography began. So on the script, he got Jonathan Helms to help write the script, and he actually wrote for George Lucas on the show The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. So he has some help with this, but yeah, there is a number of people who are auditioning for Anakin Skywalker, and Hayden Christensen ended up getting the role. And he just finished the script before they began shooting. And like I said, the hype died down before this film came out. And it was also the first film to have a totally computer-generated Yoda. And this one's a lot more computerized than Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace was computerized, but it still has some of the old filmmaking techniques. Attack of the Clones is also the first film to be shot entirely in digital. No film, but entirely in digital. The entire film. This and Once Upon a Time in Mexico by Robert Rodriguez were some of the earliest digital films that came out. So yeah, this was really kind of ahead of the curve to some of the other movies you see later. But how does the film compare? Well, again, it's good, but it has its flaws, much like Phantom Menace. However, those flaws aren't as big in my opinion, and also, Attack of the Clones, in my honest opinion, feels more like a Star Wars film. I almost feel like you could have started with this film as Episode 1, had another one that showed more of the Clone Wars, and then ended on Revenge of the Sith. Like, this film feels more like it's connected to the Star Wars universe. There's still some original elements in there, but there's just stuff we know of that we wanted to see. And Anakin's also older. He's Obi-Wan Kenobi's apprentice now, and that adds another layer to it. He's not just a kid. He's more interesting. He's older. He's pretty much almost an adult. And that adds something new. And in addition, you also have a love story, so you see how he begins to have feelings for Padme Amidala. Basically, they go on two separate missions. This assassin's trying to kill her, and one of the characters is Jango Fett, who we know as Boba Fett's father. And he's a very interesting character. Jango, George Lucas named it after, yes, Django from the spaghetti westerns. But so you have that whole assassination attempt there, and then there's this whole chase in Coruscant. That's pretty cool because we never really saw Coruscant like in throughout the cities and in the buildings. Like it's mostly just been like the Senate and everything, and then just from outside shots. This one shows you how the traffic is, a bar. Very Shadows of the Empire, like, really. And Hayden Christensen actually said that the bar was his favorite part to film because it was real set. And that adds a lot, too. And I get to the use of blue screen here in a minute and how that affects a movie. Yeah, you get his old romance with Padme Amidala. While Obi-Wan searches for this assassin, you find out that this former Jedi ordered a clone army and is actually maybe behind these attacks against the Republic. He's with the Separatists, so there's just a lot of backstory that's found out in this installment, and a lot of stuff that paves the way for the Empire and everything you know of in the original trilogy. Yeah, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi's older as well. It's set 10 years after, so Ewan McGregor purposely grew a beard, had his hair longer, but he also grew a beard too to look more like Alice Guinness's character from A New Hope, and that adds a lot too, because we saw Obi-Wan as an apprentice, and now Obi-Wan is the master, so Ewan McGregor's more like the Obi-Wan we all know. There's even some funny banter in the film again, where it's just like, how come I feel like you're going to be the death of me? He says to Anakin, very funny, considering Anakin as Darth Vader kills him in the original Star Wars. But there's just a lot of good stuff there, and a lot of good throwbacks. As far as the cons of the film, yes, it's very, very computerized, but what does it is, again, with the acting, they're just talking to stuff that's not there. So part of an actor is to use imagination, which it works, but sometimes that affects performances and everything. And Hayden Christensen, he's okay as Anakin, but he's not the best as far as acting. But that's not entirely his fault. He did say in the commentary that he was uncomfortable. He never acted with blue screen, that was kind of difficult for him. And I believe it, because you look at his performance in films like Shattered Glass, and I was just like, wow, he really has a lot of layers and depth in that role. And then you look at Anakin Skywalker, and you're just like, ah. But I think it's a blue screen, because he significantly improved his performance in Revenge of the Sith, and it's probably because he got more used to working like that. Him and Padme, I like their chemistry. I think, however, the writing is not very well written for the romance. It just kind of happens, and it's awkward, and it's almost like borderline stalker, just like obsession. And I don't know, it's just that some of the lines are just cringeworthy, where it's not believable. Like, it's good, but it's not in a believable way. It's not like in the way Han and Princess Leia fell in love in Empire Strikes Back. That felt real. And not only that, you also had more development for that, which is why I think this should have been the first film, but that part of the film doesn't jive as well. You end up buying into it by the end of the film, but just the start of it is just it's awkward. It's an odd start, and it's also very awkward because the other Star Wars films have taken place like pretty much close to the previous one as far as time period, whether it's a couple of months or a couple of years. This one's an entire decade after Phantom Menace, so there's a lot that has changed and a lot that has happened in between both films. But one good thing George Lucas does is he explains exactly what happened in between those films, so you're not entirely lost. It's not like this threat just came out of nowhere after there's victory. So that works. Christopher Lee as Count Dooku is fantastic. He doesn't arrive till like 76 minutes into the movie, but he's a main villain, and that's one thing I have to say, is that I feel like this film is greatly improved by having him as a villain. Darth Maul was great. He had awesome lightsaber effects, but not much dialogue. And this one thing that this film has that Phantom Menace did not have, and that is like an actual villain, an actual threat, an actual antagonist for them to face against throughout the movie that's orchestrating stuff. In a way, he's almost like another apprentice of Darth Sidious, another person that's like Darth Maul for this Phantom Menace that is Darth Sidious / Emperor Palpatine later. But it adds a lot to the film, and then you have Jango Fett, and the stuff on Kamino is great. I love when you meet the clone army and it has the Imperial March, and you get to see the clone troopers as like the prototype for the Imperial stormtroopers later. Jango Fett and ObiWan's fight is great. The asteroid field, gosh, in theaters when I first saw that, that was loud. That was loud. You want to get your ears blown out? Watch Attack of the Clones in theaters next time it's re-released and just hear that asteroid field. Or put it on a surround sound system. It will blow your mind, literally. It was nice seeing Boba Fett. Mace Windu gets a larger role in this. Sam Jackson, he kicks ass, man. He's literally like his wallet on Pulp Fiction. Just like, this party's over, and then just like fighting. Cuts Django's head off, like that stuff was just brutal. But yeah, the two stories kind of work in this. And one major thing that does help this film is that there is significantly less Jar Jar Binks. And that really elevates the film a lot more than Phantom Menace. And it's crazy because he gives the Chancellor emergency powers, which George Lucas kind of mirrored to Adolf Hitler's rise to power. And it's just funny because this guy, you know he's going to be Emperor Palpatine. He gets emergency powers, and Jar Jar's the one that gives him emergency powers. The most hated character probably in the Star Wars universe is responsible for like the whole Star Wars trilogy for taking place to begin with. So I just find that kind of funny. And I'm still waiting for him to be the Sith Lord like Robot Chicken revealed. Definitely. I'm definitely expecting him to be over Master Snoke in the new one. But I digress. But yeah, the romance just wasn't as realistic. But yeah, who wouldn't blame Anakin though for sleeping around with Natalie Portman at that age? At that time, like seriously, it's a no-brainer why Anakin feels the way he feels. But I like the subplot. Things start becoming really interesting when he starts having nightmares about his mother dying. So Padme and Anakin go to Tatooine. You get to see the world. And then you find out that she was sold to a guy named Lars. And you get to see Owen, Lars, and Aunt Beru basically before she's married to Owen. So you get to see a younger Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen in the film in Luke's house from A New Hope when it's like new. C-3PO has armor plates now, but they're kind of rusted. That stuff is great. They also had some deleted scenes where you get to see Padme's home. And I wish they didn't delete that. That would have added a lot more development and maybe helped the romance element of the film. But I did like their chemistry. The scene by the lake in the fields, that was great stuff there. And you kind of get to see Anakin's way of thinking and why he may support Emperor Palpatine in a dictatorship over the Republic, really. Yeah. You find out that Tusken Raiders had took Anakin Skywalker's mother, and that scene is very powerful. This is where Hayden Christensen really gets a moment to shine and show his depth. When she dies, that's just a brilliant scene, and the direction, the music, John Williams' music at the Tusken Raider camp, and then just has like this eye look where that's the moment. I mean, Revenge of the Sith had the whole downfall of him becoming Darth Vader, but this was the moment where he truly started to turn to the dark side. It was a very, very pivotal moment. And then he ends up getting a lightsaber and killing the Tusken Raiders. They don't show it all, however. But I understand it because it's rated PG and they don't show it. And I wish they did. That would have really added to the film if they just went PG-13 route earlier. But I think the reason why it's like that is because it makes this next scene even more powerful. Where Padme is wondering if he's doing okay. And he reveals to her, she's like, I didn't kill just the men, but the women and the children too. I hate them. And her reaction is just intense because you don't know he killed the women and children. You think he just killed the Tusken Raiders. He comes back with like his mother's dead body all wrapped up. It's just a tragic scene. But that moment was very powerful, and I think that's the reason why they didn't show him wipe out the whole Tusken Raider camp, is because it makes that scene even more surprising. I knew he killed the Tusken Raiders, but the fact that he killed women and children too just shows you the level of hate that's conjuring up within him that's going to end up making him become Darth Vader later on. Just great stuff in the whole funeral. And then Battle of Geonosis is great. However, another really blue screen scene is a factory scene. And I thought it was okay when it first came out, but again, CGI does not age as well as practical effects, and this scene just is really, it's kind of a time waster. But the arena scene's great. The Geonosians, you actually find out the Geonosians are the ones that had the designs for the Death Star. And then the last fight is good. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and then the best moment in the entire film is when Yoda wields a lightsaber for the first time in this film. And wow, such a great moment, and that fight, he just goes crazy on Count Dooku, and it's nuts. But in that regard, I can see why they had to computerize Yoda. You couldn't do that type of fighting with a puppet. You'd have to computerize him. So it serves a purpose here, I think. And then it ends, and he's like, "Begun the Clone War has." Does that whole Imperial March thing. You see Bail Organa worry Jimmy Smith's character, Chancellor Palpatine's there, and now, well, he's Senator Palpatine. Senator Palpatine's there. Ending, and then the wedding, and it mirrors Empire Strikes Back. And yeah. And again, it's the writing that bogs this film down. And I wish they didn't delete some of the scenes. It would have added more development. I just feel like it should have gone through just like one or two more rewrites. And also, I like the banter between Anakin and Obi-Wan, but you get the feeling that Obi-Wan's just jealous of him. Maybe that's intended for Anakin, for you to feel Anakin's emotions, but it doesn't feel very Master Apprentice like it does in Revenge of the Sith. It feels more like, oh great, I'm stuck with teaching you after Qui-Gon Jinn died. But maybe it's because it's early on. Anakin's not as patient and not as, I guess, as skillful as he is later on. And then you have the whole romance stuff. And again, I don't blame Anakin. Seeing Padme like that, I'm like, yeah, I probably would too. But the whole no love thing really was added to the Jedi. But I get why George Lucas had it in there. I mean, like, why couldn't he just marry her? But then you think about it, it was like he put that in there because, again, it's like what Yoda said in Phantom Menace. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. So you kind of get to see that. But overall, the pace of it and everything is just a lot more. It just flows a lot better than Phantom Menace. It's much more of a cohesive story, and it doesn't feel like it has any slow parts. Like, it feels more like a Star Wars film. Yeah, and that part where he saves his mother, you get to see the droid thing, and then he's on the speed bike. Oh my god, the two suns, just perfect. Pretty much the film is good overall. I like the whole film, but the film doesn't really fully get interesting and good until they're on two separate missions. You have Obi-Wan dealing with the bounty hunter, Jango Fett, and then who's behind these attacks, and then Anakin and Padme go to Tatooine. You get to see his home again. That's when the film really, really becomes interesting, and then everything just kind of makes full circle. And, of course, it leaves it open to the Clone Wars. And there's a Clone Wars series on Cartoon Network that was made, and then it spawned a CGI version of that. And, of course, the Clone Wars were mentioned in the original Star Wars, so it was actually nice getting to see something that was mentioned in the original films. And, again, it felt more Star Wars-like. It felt more like a Star Wars film. And that's one thing I give to this film, that is better than Phantom Menace. But it's only significantly a little bit better than Phantom Menace. It's not up there with the original trilogies by any means. It still suffers some of the same writing and some of the same problems that Phantom Menace dealt with. It's just that there's a little bit less. And because of that, I give Attack of the Clones a 3.5 out of 5, a 7 out of 5, and a B. That is my grade for Attack of the Clones. But it's a very enjoyable film, and it's probably my second favorite in the prequel trilogy. It's nice seeing Anakin and Padme actually look around the same age now. All the Jedi stuff is great. Some of the effects have been a little dated now that it's been years past. But overall, it's a step in the right direction. And it feels, again, more like a Star Wars film should feel like. It has those Star Wars moments. And, yeah. The hype died down, but you know, you did have some merchandise. You had cereal. I used to eat the Star Wars cereal. It was like Lucky Charms with like marshmallows of the Star Wars characters. Great stuff I used to eat every single night. But yeah, I wanted to go through it a little bit more, but that's just my quick thoughts and review for Attack of the Clones. But I would highly recommend watching it. Especially if you weren't happy with Phantom Menace. I think you would enjoy this film a bit more. Everything I said about it having an antagonist, and it does have some problems with the writing and the acting, but I think it's more with the writing and just everything, how it's made. But it's very good, and also the first film to be shot entirely in digital. That's something now in this digital age we live in. So yeah, definitely check out Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. Again, 3.5 out of 5, 7 out of 10, and a B. definitely check out Attack of the Clones. And then, if you like this review, feel free to check out my next review, in which I'll review Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Also, let me know your thoughts out there. What did you think of Attack of the Clones? What was your favorite video game? Did you eat the Star Wars cereal? I had that almost every night. I loved it. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this quick little review. I could have gone through it a bit more, but I don't know what else to say, really. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for my next review. And then this weekend, I'll review Star Wars Rogue One.